Hello and welcome to My Game Generation. In this short documentary, we'll look into the brief history of video games and consoles. First off, we'll look into the history of video games. So, in the immortal words of Super Mario, let's go! In the 50s we have the dark ages of video games, with the first influential video game known as Spacewar. Moving on to the 70s, we have the first arcade games in the shape of Pong and Space Invaders, with the first consoles appearing in the form of the Magnavox Odyssey. Then the first video game crash happened in 1977, where clones of games like Pong, like Bat and Ball and Ping, dried up the market, making some console makers abandon their consoles. However, the games industry is revived with the release of the second generation of consoles, in the form of the VCS, later named the Atari 2600, and the Intellivision, and the ColecoVision. This starts the golden age of arcade games. But by 1983, the second games crash happens due to poorly designed games and overestimated demand for games. Most famously, the E.T. extraterrestrial game, which oversupplied more than there were actual consoles to play it on, ending up with thousands of copies being buried in a New Mexico landfill. This paves the way for the third generation of consoles, also known as the 8-bit generation. This has the rise of the gaming super company we know as Nintendo. Nintendo released their first console, the NES, or Nintendo Entertainment System. In the new consoles, the gamepad or joypad took over joysticks, paddles and keypads as the default game controller, included with the systems. The gamepad design of 8-directional pad, or D-pad for short, with 2 or more buttons became the standard. This generation also marked a shift in the dominance of home video games from the United States to Japan. In 1989 and the early 90s saw the release and spread of MUD codebases like DecuMud and LPMUD. This leading to the tremendous increase and the proliferation of popularity of MUDs. Before the end of the decade, the evolution of the genre continued through graphical MUDs into the first MMORPGs, or massively multiplayer online role-playing games, such as Ultimate Online and EverQuest. Following on, we have the fourth generation of consoles, the 16-bit generation. Although these consoles came out in my generation, I didn't really enter the gaming world until the fifth generation of consoles. However, this does show the rise of CD-ROM with the Sega Mega CD and the TurboGrafx CD. Finally, we get on to where I entered the games culture with my first console, the N64, or Nintendo 64. I remember that one Christmas morning waking up to a brand new experience of entertainment. I was only around 6 at that time. I didn't understand the full entertainment experience till later. At that early age, my mother says I would watch her play as I stare in amazement, thinking it was the best television program on. My first game being Super Mario 64, and one that sparked my interest in a certain genre, Diddy Kong Racing. Within the next few years, I familiarized myself with the ways of the game, and by that time I got my next console. I would class myself as at least a casual gamer. The next console I got was the PlayStation 1, not to be confused with the PlayStation X, also known as the original PlayStation. With the PlayStation 1, I remember getting a detachable screen with the console. This sparked my interest in games. Along with a nudge from my friends and peers, I was ready for my next consoles. The PlayStation 2, or PS2 for short, was my first hardcore gaming experience. I say hardcore, but the reality is I would play platformers on the easiest difficulty, so I felt like I've achieved something. Around a year later, I received a Nintendo GameCube, which brings me back to platformers of Nintendo. But my love of racer games was not disappointed, as it was blessed with the game Mario Kart Double Dash, and for the PS2, Need for Speed Underground 2. By this time I had a strong experience with racing games, and I would go around my neighbourhood on a bike pretending I was in a high-speed race car. A small time later I was introduced to a desktop PC my mother bought and my first internet experience. My cousin then introduced me to the world of MMORPGs. At first I had little interest, but later it would dominate my gaming life. Moving on, I buy my own console for the first time. The console I bought, the Nintendo Wii. The Wii, I assume, would make my whole family into gamers, but to my dismay, swinging a white baton around like a crazed lunatic was for little children and as a weird exercise routine. The Wii bombarded by motion-tracked nonsense with the occasional good game. One of those good games being the Nintendo's fighting game, Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Brawl is the third game of the Super Smash Bros. Series, which brought a new game mode where you could play a story-based mode. This unlocks new characters and also gives a new story-based gameplay rather than the previous games in the series which have fighting through stages without any real storyline. Around this time I got back in touch with the MMORPG my cousin introduced me to, prompting me to invest in my own personal laptop computer. The game in question is ever so popular game, said to be king of the browser and a leading light in the genre. I'm talking about RuneScape. It was around 2007 when I started to play the game thoroughly. The game itself is a moderately large community of players playing the same game, completing quests and leveling up skills. The game has changed a lot since I last played it, with what is now a huge graphical updates, endless quests, to more skills and mini-games, to the more recent Squirrel of Fortune. The Squirrel of Fortune is basically a wheel of chance with a free spin every day to win a special prize, which 50% of the time you have to be a member to reap the rewards, making it just an incentive for you to log on every day and buy membership in order to win a stupid trinket. As you can tell, I have mixed feelings for this game, as it takes a lot of time to build a character to a good standard. But for the same reasons, it almost sucks the fun out of what you are doing, constantly clicking to mine 100,000 coal so you can level up mining, and that you have the resources to smelt 5,000 steel armor plates. The main reason I have an on-off relationship with this game is as soon as I start playing it again, I decide to do the maths, calculating how long it will take me to reach the highest skill in order to get a special cape that does this cool emote when wearing it. I did the maths. It would take me around 21.5 days to get from 65 fletching to a full 99. And to be honest, no one wants to waste that much time doing such a repetitive and boring task for no real reward. Back to normal fun gaming, I received my first Xbox, the Xbox 360. I got this for Christmas, which came with the games PGR 4, Sega Superstars Tennis, and a double pack of Lego Indiana Jones and Kung Fu Panda, and also an arcade bundle pack which I didn't find till almost a half a year later, as it was hidden in the packaging of the Xbox it came in. The Xbox was my first experience of online gameplay via the Xbox Live. The thrill I had knowing that I wasn't just beating a computer or my brother, but an actual other person who had no settable difficulty and I couldn't physically see. This sparked a more competitive game out of me as I got better and beat records, in some cases still holding the records to this date, like in Burnout Paradise where the name Shiva Forever is almost tattooed across the streets. And now for the sub-story of my gaming generation, the rise and fall of the PS3 in my games collection. On a whim, after I bought a HD-ready TV, I decided I needed a HD console to play it on. So I went and bought a PS3. The fun was short-lived after I found out the console couldn't play PS2 games on the console, and the HD glory was not good enough, considering if I got the right cable from my Xbox, it could get just as good a picture. The lack of good exclusive games was short, which ended up with me trading in the PS3 for a second Xbox, so my brother can play on his own games whilst I play mine. And that almost ends my gaming generation. But what is next? We have the Kinect and 3DS, but what does the future have in store for the next gaming generation? I've been Sam Heaver, and this has been my gaming generation. Happy gaming. Why not join the debate and follow the QR code and use the hashtag MyGG. And if you feel up for it, send in a video response below.